Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a topic that is honestly deeply unsettling but absolutely crucial to understand: systemic workplace victimization. We're going to be unpacking this through the lens of a genuinely heroic case study from Marcus Raybach's book, An Education in Victimization. Before this whole ordeal started, Raybach was just a dedicated, qualified teacher. He was eager to get into the classroom and actually make a difference. But his personal nightmare working within the New South Wales Department of Education in Australia, well, it shines a massive spotlight on a much broader international phenomenon known as workplace mobbing. It's a gripping story, and it forces us to take a hard look at exactly what happens when institutions completely fail to protect their own people. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the nightmare at Bidwell High, look into the health questing trap, and discuss fighting for natural justice. Then we'll shift from the micro-level personal injustice to the macro-level by exploring the science of mobbing, the true cost of victimization, and wrap up with reforming the toxic workplace. Section 1. The Nightmare at Bidwell High. So, according to the source material, Marcus Raybach was officially offered and he accepted a permanent position as a teacher of business management and economics at Chifley College's Bidwell campus. Now, the context here is absolutely crucial. Think about this for a second. At least 19 other qualified teachers had previously looked at this exact permanent role and basically decided they would literally rather be unemployed than step foot inside Bidwell High. It was notoriously chaotic, but Raybach accepted the contract in good faith, completely unaware of the institutional chaos that was waiting for him. But man, the reality he walked into on day one, it completely shattered the parameters of his official contract. Remember, he was hired as an accredited business and economics teacher. Yet look at what they handed him: 23 geography classes, 5 math classes, and 5 travel and tourism classes. He was given 0 classes, literally none, in the actual subjects he was qualified for. To make matters worse, he was assigned some of the most challenging students in the entire school, but with absolutely no behavioral support or centralized discipline structures provided. He was structurally set up to fail right out of the gate. So, naturally, Raybach raised legitimate grievances about this setup. He correctly pointed out that nobody can succeed without proper resources. But the response from the school's leadership? Instantly dismissive. According to the book, when he asked for standard disciplinary support, Principal Gail Wykes just told him to, quote, turn the eye inward. It is so important to understand the psychological manipulation happening right here. This phrase is textbook workplace mobbing. It's designed to make the victim feel crazy for pointing out a burning building, instantly shifting the blame for systemic organizational failures directly onto the employee brave enough to speak up. Section 2. The health questing trap. When Raybach refused to just put up and shut up, and instead escalated his complaints through official channels, he walked straight into a trap he calls health questing. We can define this as the alleged misuse of psychiatric evaluations by employers to declare whistleblowers or just inconvenient employees medically unfit for service. It's basically a ruthless administrative shortcut. Imagine how terrifying that is. It transforms a standard HR dispute into a weaponized medical crisis. It leaves the employee feeling entirely powerless against a massive bureaucracy that's just trying to dodge its own documented problems. Raybach's book lays out the exact deceptive playbook they used on him. Step 1. The staff welfare officer directed him to attend what was casually called a mandatory general provisioner's medical. Now, step 2 is where things get wild. Feeling suspicious, Raybach actually called the clinic's director himself. Just imagine the sheer shock of finding out over a phone call that your employer is secretly trying to build a psychiatric profile on you using heavily biased, unverified background info. And step 3, the institution's ultimate goal is to use that manipulated diagnosis to medically retire and permanently silence the whistleblower. Section 3. Fighting for natural justice. The department's official story painted Raybach as this rogue employee dodging medical appointments and ignoring warnings, claiming he was annulled, which is just a bureaucratic way of saying fired. But the documented legal reality tells a totally different story. Backed by the very clinic director he had spoken to, Raybach had legally postponed the assessment until he could see the secret allegations against him. Plus, the department couldn't produce a single receipt proving they ever actually mailed him the required annulment notice. This kind of institutional incompetence, or let's be real, outright malice, robbed him of his statutory 14 days to defend himself. Knowing his firing was invalid, Raybach took his fight to the Industrial Relations Commission under file IRC 04/385. Because he got some truly terrible legal advice early on, his application was technically considered grossly out of time. But he didn't give up. He aggressively pursued the Curacin precedent. This precedent is a massive deal because it acts as a legal safeguard against institutions trying to just run out the clock on a victim's rights by hiding information. In the Curacin case, the courts essentially ruled that natural justice has to prevail, even if an application is delayed because the institution was playing games. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we transition from his personal story to Section 4, the science of mobbing. 45. That is the exact number of specific mobbing behaviors identified by pioneering researcher Dr. Heinz Lehmann. You see, mobbing isn't just having a rough week or a grumpy boss. It's systematic psychological terror. Lehmann found that for a situation to actually be classified as entrenched mobbing, at least one of these 45 behaviors has to happen at least weekly for a minimum of 6 continuous months. We're talking about things like withholding crucial info, the silent treatment, shifting goalposts, spreading vicious rumors, and, just like Rayback experienced, forcing completely unnecessary psychiatric assessments. Lehmann mapped out this timeline he calls the mobbing dramaturgy, and it is crazy how perfectly it aligns with Rayback's story. It starts on day 1 with an objective conflict, like being assigned 23 classes you aren't accredited to teach. By week 4, the victim is actively isolated. Peers avoid them because they don't want to become targets themselves. By month 3, management flips the script. The victim's natural stress responses are weaponized to define them as the problem. And finally, by month 6, the victim is completely scapegoated and dismissed. The organization's original failure, totally covered up. Section 5. The true cost of victimization. Lyman's epidemiological data reveals a genuinely staggering statistic. 1 in 4 people, 25% of the entire workforce, runs the risk of facing entrenched mobbing for at least 6 continuous months during their career. To put that into perspective, this isn't some rare one-off anomaly. It is a massive systemic societal issue. And crucially, it's heavily concentrated in sectors like education, healthcare, and public service, places where management accountability is often low and thick bureaucracy shields toxic leaders. We really have to treat the trauma of this experience with the academic gravity it deserves. The source text brings in a profound quote from Dr. Dahl in 1989. He states, "The psychological pain, anxiety, degradation, and helplessness that lead to post-traumatic stress disorder injuries can be compared with those suffered by raped women." It's heavy, I know, but it perfectly illustrates why non-physical violence can be just as devastating as physical violence. Systemic mobbing shatters a person's identity, strips their dignity, and often leaves them with severe PTSD and long-term disabilities. Section 6. Reforming the toxic workplace. So, the crucial point is, systemic problems require systemic solutions. We have to cure what Reebok calls the three-monkey management culture, that see no evil, hear no evil mindset. Based on the research, organizations need real, no-blame conflict resolution, where honest mistakes can be addressed without retaliation. Our courts need to recognize mobbing as actionable violence with real damages. We need independent mobbing advisory services, entirely separate from internal HR, because let's face it, internal HR protects the company. Management must be held accountable, and we need ironclad laws protecting whistleblowers from psychiatric retaliation, like health questing. So, take a hard look at your own organization right now. If a legitimate, objective conflict arose in your workplace today, do you honestly trust that the problem would be solved? Or would the institution circle the wagons, medicalize the conflict, and ruthlessly silence the messenger? It's a deeply uncomfortable question for sure, but a vital one for all of us to ask. Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer, and keep learning.